Hey, I'm Christopher McClure, and welcome to the Shift Show, where we bring spirit to bear on trending issues. And today's episode I call Kalki Couple. Now, so you're probably wondering, what does Kalki mean, and how come there's this thing called Kalki Couple? Kalki is an Indian word. It's not. It's a from the country India. Um, it's actually the language Malayalam. Malayalam, from the state Kerala. It means basically it means the last avatar. Now maybe you're thinking, okay, well I've seen that movie Avatar, but what I don't understand. What does this have to do with anything? Well, an avatar is actually refers to a person who who is born into the world to help humanity. It's usually an advanced individual, um, and you can think of various examples of that. Jesus, Buddha, Mayor Baba, Sri Aurobindo. Um, the thing about Kalki is, he's called the last avatar, or she, or it. It's called the last avatar because it's because there won't be a need for one after that, and the reason being that the last avatar, or Kalki, is us. In other words, it's not one person; it's everybody. It's the whole human race. It's the collective, right? That we have come. We are the ones for whom we have waited. So, um, and then why am I combining this with the word couple, and what does that mean? Um, so one of the ways, one of the hurdles that we must get over as a collective, as a species, is what I would, in general, call tolerance, and what I mean by that is it basically how can I be who I am and support you, right? And how can we each have that ability? And how can we do that for the whole human race? That's that's what tolerance is about. And so the one of the best training grounds for tolerance I've found is a partnership. Whether that partnership be marriage, or it be a business partnership, or it be a relationship with a family member, or um, if it be just a boy girlfriend relationship. Taught the When there is a commitment to staying together and growing through the relationship, that um, what is necessary to do that is tolerance. And so now I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to talk about what tolerance is. Okay, so this chart, this figure here, this geometric figure is called the Enneagram, and it said that any complete system of knowledge can fit inside of the Enneagram. And what I call this thing that I do with the Enneagram, I call this the ancient Enneagram. I call it ancient Enneagram solutions. So we're going to start with number one here, and so the first step in tolerance that I found, this is all of my experience, and it's a lot of this is nonviolent communication, NVC, which is sometimes called compassionate communication. Um, but these are the important things in tolerance that I've found kind of essential in order. And basically, I've found these, on the road of hard knocks in relationship, just like falling into pits, and figuring out, okay, what do I need to learn here in order for this to be better. The very first thing, is I statements. Um, People in general are so used to saying, you know, um, like for instance, with say the war in Ukraine, to say, those Russians are assholes. So that is not an I statement. That's a statement. That's a judgment, and what it does. The person who says that, if I said that, it would set me up as an authority, to on on that situation. Whereas if I said, in my perspective, those Russians are really, they're assholes. I've made it clear that this is just my opinion, and then if the other person, the person listening to me, does not share the same opinion, at least it's clear that there's room for another opinion here, and because if I make a statement that sets me up as an authority, then if the person I'm speaking to does not agree, then the chances are they are going to have a rebuttal, which is they'll just go into, and like, well, they won't even, they'll just say, oh, that's not true at all, and so here we are arguing truth when truth is really a relative thing, and we and I believe that when we can honor each other's perspective, then we get to a total truth, which is closer to, something that like the absolute truth, something that's actually true. Now, as the other person listening to this person who's made an I statement, if I can say, oh, so so if I made an I statement, I said, from my perspective, the Russians are really assholes. Then the person mirroring could say, all right, well, I hear that from your perspective, the Russians are assholes, and I can really see how you would feel that way. I mean, the stuff that the media is saying, is really would lead one to believe that. So what I've done is I've made it really clear that I've heard you and that I honor your perspective. And so what that does to the first person making the I statement is it makes them relax. It's like, oh, okay, well, we're having a discussion, and my viewpoint's valid here. Sometimes, though, we might, the person, say I was the person on the other side, and I might go, that, even if you made an I statement, and if say I forgot to mirror and validate, I would go, well, that's not true. That's, if you look deeper into this situation, you're going to find that there's a lot more going on here than what most people think, and so and you're just you're just looking on the surface, right? So what I've done right there is I've made a judgment, but there is an opportunity to go underneath my judgment, right? I can say, well, when you say that, I feel like, like you're you're not really looking at the whole situation. You're not looking at what's come before, and you're not looking at, like there's so much more information, available that has a different perspective on this situation. But when you say that, I feel like, I feel like I have to defend this truth that this other truth that I feel, and when I feel like I have to defend it, I feel like stress, and I feel like we're going to get into an argument, and underneath that I feel afraid and unsafe, and So what I've done here is I've gotten down to the feelings that I have that are more vulnerable, and in doing that, I've um, I've created much more of an opportunity for discussion rather than a debate. Now, I might have a hard time in this situation to get under these feelings, but if I put myself in the position of the first person making the I statement, that person, if they actually made an I statement, they could help me by exercising what I call empathy, which is that, all right, so I hear you that you feel like there's a lot more going on here, and that I'm just looking at the surface, and I imagine that underneath that you kind of feel like you feel defensive, and you feel like there's like a whole reality that you have to um, you know that you're responsible. You feel like you're responsible for holding that reality, and I would imagine that you feel stress and you feel fear. In other words, I'm helping them go underneath the feelings, and that's something that this has taken a long time. I've been familiar with nonviolent communication for a really long time, and that I've just come to this recently because this the I statements and the mirror invalidating, although it's a really good form and it really kind of gets you at least your foot in the door, it can very easily turn into a kind of like a one upmanship kind of situation. And what I've seen from examples of the person who created a nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg, is that he was really good at the empathy. It was like and the other party didn't even have to know nonviolent communication, and he would help them just by it's like, well, I'm imagining underneath that you're feeling. So it's a really important part, that goes. There's the steps of nonviolent communication, but there's also this underlying kind of attitude, which is one of empathy. So this next point, duck and dodge, is something that I've learned, and I'm still learning. This is a hard thing to do, but it makes a lot of sense, and it's particular to a male-female kind of interaction, where very often, well, let me just say that when men are talking, basically there's some senses that they have to say what's true, and they have to be able to live by that. They have to back it up. Whereas when women talk, there's more of a sense of them expressing their feelings, and what they're saying can really be just almost anything, and it's almost like they're trying on clothes. That's the way the the this idea of duck and dodge comes from a book, Men Are From Mars and Women From Venus by John Gray. That women they're like trying on clothes, when they're trying on these feelings, and the words are just like just the clothes of those feelings. And so if the man can actually just hold space for the woman to do that and not get defensive and not feel like he has to like um, I heard you think that I'm stupid, and I'm just looking at things on the surface, and and if the man can actually just hold space, um, the woman actually starts to feel like she's like her feelings are valid, and then she starts to just very very naturally kind of rise, her vibration rises, and then she starts to feel appreciation and gratitude rather than the criticalness. And so ducking and dodging it's a very difficult thing, but it's really skillful. Now there might be times in the course of a discussion where one or both people get very triggered, either very angry, and to continue talking in that state is just like it doesn't work anymore. That's the time to call time out, for and what that time out is for is so that each person can go by themselves and own the feelings that they're feeling. And the way that I do this, primarily, I mean, there's a couple ways. Sometimes I can just do it with magnets. I have the magnets, and if you run the magnets right from kind of the bridge of your nose up over your head down to the base of your neck, there's a meridian there, and it's like emotions are just energy in the body, and then our mind creates a story around it, and that's what emotions are. And when we go like this, it actually dissipates the story, so then it's easier to actually it's like the negativity around the emotions tends to go away, and just the act of just picking up the magnets, it's an act of owning. For me, it's an act of owning my own feelings. It's like, okay, yeah, what I'm feeling is not, I'm not being punished by anybody. I'm choosing to feel these feelings. And so I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to try to, make my emotional state better. And that's what the magnets do. The other thing that I do that I find really helpful is a meditation technique that I learned from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, which is called Tonglen. And in Tonglen, basically what you're doing is you're breathing in the negativity and you're breathing out neutrality. And, in most breathing meditations, some kind of version of the opposite is what's taught. Is you breathe in good and you breathe out bad. Well, this is actually, the reverse of that. And I find that, I mean, it might take 10 minutes, it might take 45 minutes, but whatever I'm feeling after, if I do Tonglen, eventually I get to the place where, oh, this is all that, it's all happening inside of me, and it's not, this notion that it's being caused or by anybody or anything out there. It just kind of, that dissolves, and it just becomes my own experience. Then I'm ready to continue a conversation at that point. Kind of taking this one step further, just realized this recently with my wife, where we both were in a state where we didn't have the capacity to really give space for one another, and we both kind of needed space. So, one solution would be just to go, I could just go and eat somewhere else, but she suggested that we just eat in silence. And at first I was like, no, that's weird. But then I I agreed to try it, and I found out that it was actually, it really worked. It's like I could just be with my own experience and do that side by side with her. So what we're leading up to with all of this, with this tolerance, which is, mainly through discussion, is how do we collaborate? That's sort of like the next rung of the ladder. The first is tolerance, and then the next rung is collaboration. How do we, as people, as members of the human race, collaborate with one another? Because that's what Kalki is about. It's about this, this collective savior, which is us, but the only way that savior can come into the world is through our collaboration with each other, which requires this sense of tolerance. And I found recently, we're my wife and I are in a band, and our drummer is sometimes he experiences my wife's and my altercations, and what he's always doing in those situations is, all right, well, let's just keep playing, or let's just, where's the groove? Basically, that's his attitude. It's like, where's the groove? Like where is it working? How, And then he was talking one day about his own relationship with his wife, and I realized that he applies this principle like to everything, to like his marriage, and this is, and I realized, wow, this is a really good technique in life. Instead of you know either looking for unconsciously or consciously the contention, or even leaning into the contention, to look for what's working and to find the groove. And that's, of course, there's the danger of kind of sweeping things under the rug, but I think for people who don't have the tendency to sweep on things under the rug, finding the groove is actually a really good balance. So what we're doing here, what we're why are we do why are we trying to relate to each other, and or why are we trying to get through the emotional and the mental, maybe even the physical things, to be able to, instead of being polarized with each other, what are we, why are we trying to get through all that stuff? Well, the reason we're trying to get through it is because we're trying to get to the energy body. We're trying to get to that the so everything that is in creation, everything that's manifest, people, objects, animals, it's all, there is an energetic component to it. In other words, there is a energetic component to my being, and it's like a blueprint. It's like that the energy comes first, and if there's like imbalances in the energy, then it's going to show up in my body. But it starts with the energy, and this is, we're taught this by like Chinese medicine, and that energy body is also called the pranic body, or the rainbow body, or chi. I think chi is akin to the energy body. But what that energy body actually is, it's the fifth dimension. And we've heard this. We've heard over and over that we are moving from the third dimension into the fifth dimension. And so the fifth dimension is actually the identification with the energy body. And it doesn't mean that we're completely leaving our physical bodies behind, or emotional bodies, or mental bodies. It just means that our identification has shifted to a more subtle level. And when our identification shifts to that more subtle level, then that is the shift that what that we're talking about in Welcome to the Shift Show. That's the shift. You've probably heard that we are on the verge of a shift, that we have to shift, or else we're not going to continue um, you know as a species. This is the shift, and it's the identification with the energy body. Um, and in this process of going through this mirroring that happens in relationship, whether it's a marriage, or it's a partnership, or a relationship with a family member, or just a relationship in the world with somebody that you meet. What There is a, a mirroring and a friction that happens, because there are parts of ourselves that we don't want to see. We deny for whatever reason, and that's generally in psychology that's called shadow. And but by you know entering into these relationships and honoring what comes up, and including our shadow, and working through that and owning these parts of ourselves that we didn't want to, that we wanted to deny, which was like too much, we become more whole. And that is the wholeness is akin to the state of oneness, which is in if you look at existence, there's like equation. There's separation on one side, and there's oneness on the other side. And the oneness has been the separation has been accentuated, and the oneness has just gone by the roadside. And so in this process of shifting, we're bringing the oneness back into balance with the separation. And when those are in balance, that is, then we have the opportunity to be stewards of the earth, and we have the opportunity to create heaven on earth. So I'm going to stop my share now. And once again, I'm Christopher McClure, and this is Welcome to the Shift Show. And the topic today has been Kalki couple. And please leave any comments below. And thanks for listening.